We're sure to learn a lot more, but from scouring Mangione's social media profile, we've learned a lot. Mangione appears to have been a person of immense promise. He was a high school valedictorian and had an Ivy League degree in computer science. As a young man, he doesn't seem to have been that far left of a radical. In fact, he seems to have been politically centrist. But then something went terribly wrong. Mangione was supposed to participate in a friend's wedding this fall when he suddenly vanished and stopped speaking even to his family and friends. According to his friends, Mangione had a dramatic personality change after undergoing back surgery. He also posted about experimenting with psychedelic drugs. Really a bad idea. This whole new rise of ketamine and LSD-laced psychedelics is a bad, bad trend in our country. I do not support it. All of a sudden, the street drugs in the 1960s are considered to be legitimate prescriptions and alternatives. It's a bad idea.
We're covering a plethora of topics today, starting with the, I don't know if we can say the word, but I'm just going to do it, the whole CEO assassination thing.
We can't say that word.
Okay.
What happened to him?
What happened to that guy, which was bad.
He kicked the bucket.
And they arrested.
His bucket got kicked.
A guy named Luigi Mangione.
He has been arrested.
He has been arrested. And what is crazy about it is the background of this guy is he was the valedictorian.
You almost could have, I don't know, it's so bad, but I think the personal details maybe are surprising. The kind of the details that directly led to what he did, maybe not so surprising. I don't know if that's bad to say, but I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily that surprised. Whether it was him or a personal family member who underwent some kind of traumatic injury for which he felt like he couldn't get coverage. And
it is very interesting how a lot of times it's like, oh, this guy was so intelligent. He could have never done this, you know? And I think,
and yet it seems like over and over and over and over, they're all so intelligent.
Yeah.
And so there has to be, you know, there's got to be some kind of twisting where you, I wouldn't say too intelligent for your own good, but you know, it's not necessarily a blessing. It's not a resistance against evil. I think that probably is the clearest way to say it. Intelligence is not a resistance against evil. In fact, it can lead you to deeper depths.
Have you heard that old saying where it's like genius is on the borderline of insanity?
No.
Like if you're genius, you're right on the borderline where it's like you take one misstep to the left of genius and or to the right, I guess, and you fall off into insanity.
Yeah, I think anyway, I don't want to take us too far off track. Never mind.
Yeah. Well, so let's go ahead and pull up we have a video.
So Charlie Kirk covered it. He gave some of the broad brush facts about what we know about this guy, and so we're gonna watch Charlie Kirk cover it, and then give our own take off that.
And there was a particularly interesting fact that he got that brought up, which was after his surgery, a lot of, and he'll cover this here, but a lot of his friends, he fell off the map to a lot of his friends, and afterwards started talking a lot about psychedelics, a lot about ayahuasca.
Started talking about it,
and also allegedly went and did one of these ayahuasca ceremonies.
Okay, can you? I have the most basic knowledge about this. Can you kind of talk about what this is?
The ayahuasca?
Yeah.
So it is a trend amongst like tech entrepreneur types, and you know, think of Austin, like if Austin or like Silicon Valley,
we're from Central Texas, so
Austin's popular.
Austin
now.
is definitely
that's. I mean, Elon Musk lives there now. Joe Rogan lives there.
Definitely.
Think like fitness entrepreneur, high achiever,
hustle culture bros.
Hustle culture, but like a little bit of new age mixed in.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's basically like anything that works is good. So anything that'll get me further along, anything that will make me smarter.
Kind of like level up as a human.
Exactly. That is all really good. So like biohacking, making lots of money, all of that is really good. And so there's a trend of these, it kind of started with Joe Rogan's show, having this guy named Aubrey Marcus on, who started the company called On It Nutrition with Joe Rogan, which is like supplements and all of these things. But he kind of presents himself as like this guru kind of type, where it's like a secular, spiritual, fitness kind of guy. You've seen it, like the Jay Shetty type guys.
I don't know any of these people you're talking about, but
Yeah.
I think I get the type.
Like, borderline, sometimes like egotistical con artist sometimes. I'm not saying that's what Aubrey Marcus is, but he would always talk about.
But there's a type.
Yeah, a type of guy. He would
We
talk
all know
about,
that guy from high school who's like trying to be that type of guy, and he comes off as a con artist. But
Yeah, exactly.
these guys maybe actually are doing
I
it.
don't know, man. I don't know. I saw CoffeeZilla has a segment on Jay Shetty and some of his stuff. So if you want to learn about Jay Shetty, go over to CoffeeZilla.
So anyway, what are they doing with this particular
So
drug?
they are recommending these ceremonies that you go down to like Central and South America to do, and you go
Why
see
can't you
it
do it?
because it's illegal here.
Oh, got
The
it.
drugs
Well,
are
yeah,
illegal.
but You do lots of drugs that are illegal here.
I'm sure people do it here.
Sure.
But I know most of the time it's like you go into the jungle and it's about going to see the shaman.
So it's a whole experience. It's not just
Yeah.
like do the drug, get the
Well,
effect.
so there's people that do like the straight drug, which is DMT. And then
Oh.
they're, and we
Oh,
might
that's
get
just what it is.
demonetized for this. Yes, so that's what ayahuasca produces, but it's a whole different thing. So like what they do in an ayahuasca ceremony, I don't want to go into all of it, but you'll literally like go and you'll spend like 10 days there, and you'll even do stuff like where they give you a special drink where you just cleanse like all your food and everything, so you're like puking and all this stuff.
Oh, that's what you mean by cleanse.
Yeah, like you literally throw up everything.
Got it.
And then basically you go on this retreat with this spiritual shaman, which is just like a warlock, kind of like, he's a demon worshiper. He manifests demons, but to secular humanist type people, that's just, your mind interpreting your feelings and your old emotions
And you're like
stuff.
unlocking.
But
and
there's
leveling
literally
up and-
experiences of like, there's a common experience of snakes crawling in your mouth and through your body and through your chest. Like that is a common experience that
on
people,
this drug.
after they get back, they're like, yeah, this is what happened. And now my life changed forever and it's awesome. And I'm like, dude, you literally got possessed by demons in this thing. So anyway, we're way off track, but
Well, not really. Okay,
Yeah.
because what you're saying is, allegedly, so the story goes, this guy, Luigi, falls off the face of the planet, comes back around, and is all about these experiences.
yeah. And when I see that, like, because of like before I was walking with God in my background, it's like when you see like the warlock people that have their testimonies like, yeah, I used to be a Satan worshiper and now I'm walking with God, and I see right through that. So I expose this and that. That's the same thing with like drug culture and all of these like leveling up things. That's what I got saved from. And so I see right through it. It is straight up just like, you are communicating with demons. You're getting special knowledge and like different things from demons.
My question to you would be, usually when people use those words, see right through it, they mean that there's like a scam. You know what I mean? That it's like, oh, that doesn't work. But it sounds like what you're saying is that it does work. So what do you mean by you see right through it?
It works in the short term, or to the subjective experience or perception of the people. And some people it doesn't. Like I read this whole account of this. I read this whole account, and this was back before I was saved, when I was thinking about these things and trying to decide if I wanted to do something like that. And
you were considering going on a trip like this?
Well, not full on like ayahuasca. I thought that was crazy. But like, you know, psychedelics of different kinds. And I would read these testimonies basically of people. This was my experience. And a lot of them are positive, but you never, the people that are going on podcasts aren't the ones that
Had a bad
had
trip.
the negative experiences and ruined their life. Like there was I read this experience of this one lady who went and did one of these or did DMT or something like that. And she said she divorced her husband, moved away from her family, moved into the middle of the woods, and was in this psychosis trance for 5 years, then woke up and realized what she had done for the last 5 years.
I'm sorry. Wait. Was she continually using this entire
No.
time?
No, this was one experience
One
she did.
time.
Yes, that's how crazy powerful these things are. Yeah. And then she realized what she did, and then she shared this account of like, this ruined my life.
Was she possessed? Was she unconscious? Was she?
I don't think this person was a Christian. Like, she wasn't using the Christian words. She was just like, yeah, this ruined my life.
Yeah, I
had,
guess
like,
I'm asking your
a
take.
stable job, a family, all of these things, and she just
Blew it all up.
yeah. But then all of a sudden she came out of it, and it, she realized.
Man, the Lord delivered her. That's crazy.
So that's what. So let's just roll the clip from Charlie Kirk. But something similar
I think it's the second tab.
seemed to happen to Luigi Mangione.
Oh, Luigi.
The suspected United Healthcare CEO shooter has been apprehended after a week-long manhunt. This is one of the weirdest stories that we've seen in quite some time, and one of the saddest. The suspected shooter, Luigi Mangione, was spotted at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. Police arrived and they found he was using the same fake ID that was used by the shooter. They also found a silenced pistol with him, which they described as a ghost gun, a gun assembled from parts purchased online. Mangione had a short 262-word note, similar to a brief manifesto. Reminds you almost of the Unabomber manifesto, which attacked companies that, quote, continue to abuse our country for immense profit because the American public has allowed them to get away with it, unquote. The fact pattern of this story is really remarkable. Mangione, the supposed downtrodden hero of the working class, is from a very well-off family in Maryland and attended an Ivy League school, the University of Pennsylvania. Brian Thompson, the man he murdered in cold blood, was the son of a farm worker and went to Iowa State. So why did he do it? Why did he kill this CEO in cold blood? We're sure to learn a lot more, but from scouring Mangione's social media profile, we've learned a lot. Mangione appears to have been a person of immense promise. He was a high school valedictorian and had an Ivy League degree in computer science. As a young man, he doesn't seem to have been that far left of a radical. In fact, he seems to have been politically centrist. But then something went terribly wrong. Mangione was supposed to participate in a friend's wedding this fall when he suddenly vanished and stopped speaking even to his family and friends. According to his friends, Mangione had a dramatic personality change after undergoing back surgery. He also posted about experimenting with psychedelic drugs. Really a bad idea. This whole new rise of ketamine and LSD-laced psychedelics is a bad trend in our country. I do not support it. All of a sudden, the street drugs in the 1960s are considered to be legitimate prescriptions and alternatives. It's a bad idea. So one possibility is that he underwent surgery and used psychedelic drugs to try and manage the pain, and instead had a psychotic break that ended in murder. Internet users have also read through his Goodreads page, which lists hundreds of books that he's read over the years. One of those, by the way, was Hillbilly Elegy by J.D. Vance. But the more interesting one was the one by the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski, otherwise known as the Unabomber Manifesto. Now, interestingly, if it's true that
I did recently, oh gosh, I wish I could remember more clearly. I did recently hear a suggestion that the Unabomber was subject to some MK Ultra type meddling.
Yeah, that's what he says right here.
What?
Yeah. Play it.
Go on.
Look.
He was poisoning himself with psychedelics. He had a lot in common with Ted Kaczynski. Ted Kaczynski was also a victim of poisoning, of course, by the Central Intelligence Agency.
All right.
The Unabomber.
So that,
Bro.
yeah. I there are so many of these stories where you have these kind of drugs tied with crazy conspiratorial, like psychosis events in people's lives where they do heinous crimes. Like,
I mean, that is the whole entire. We are so getting. I think we are getting demonetized for this one, but that is the whole thing with like the MK Ultra program. Is you put people on these kinds of drugs and you break them with the drug, and then you reprogram them to commit crimes like this.
yeah.
That is the whole. That was the whole purpose. That was the whole thing that it was designed for.
Yeah. Well, but I think this just happens to people naturally, I guess. Not, it's
What do you mean
supernaturally.
Oh, you mean it is the nature of these drugs to do this? That it wasn't like it's not the MK Ultra programming that does it. They just found the drug that does this to people.
Yeah, I mean, I think in those MK Ultra experiments and stuff, there's definitely a hand that they play with
Sure.
that thing, in the same way where like that shaman is leading these people towards this spiritual discovery, and it's really just, you know, helping them accept demons. Because you hear these accounts of these ayahuasca ceremonies where they literally said, yeah, I had to just stop fighting it and invite it in. That's what they say. Where they're like, it wasn't going well, like I was fighting it, and then I just realized I had to let the serpent in. It's like stuff like, and this is a common, this isn't just like one person said this. This is like most of the people say this. Like most of the people. And so that this all goes back to our whole pharmakia thing. This is witchcraft. This is not like, drugs aren't just like this thing that you can mess around with. Not, you know, obviously aspirin is different, but I'm talking about psychedelic drugs. I'm even talking about marijuana, like all this stuff. We're demonetized.
Spiritual. I think this is, again, we have a whole video on pharmakia, psychedelics, things like that. But the whole, the aim of it is not a chemical that just affects your body, but it is a mental, what we would call psychological change, but what the Bible would call a spiritual change. You are opening your spirit to be meddled with, specifically to bad spirits that want to meddle with you.
Yeah.
And you just open the door wide open. And the fact that, not just in, like, I assume, you know, some of your personal experiences.
I've personally seen someone get possessed on
What?
on LSD. I've personally seen it happen.
Would you like to share more? I mean,
No.
That's a fascinating.
No. But in terms of,
You can't just leave it there.
yes, I can. In terms of the Mangione whole thing, he is a very talented, ultra intelligent
Right.
person who was young and actually
Mingle in there,
in-
maybe some bitterness,
so,
some disappointment.
in your young age, in the young part of your life, that is actually when, right from your 20s to your 30s, is actually where you're most susceptible to schizophrenia, which is a very interesting fact.
Really?
Yeah, we don't exactly know why, but it's like right when your prefrontal lobe and stuff and prefrontal cortex is developing, that is like a time where you are extra susceptible for some reason. I guess it's the body changes and all that. And then you layer in these like profound, really demonic spiritual experiences. They could seem good or they can seem bad. Or a mix of both, but they're both bad, like ultimately. And they lead you to actually, what's so dangerous about these drugs is that they lead you to actually believing the lies they tell you. Now, it sounds so weird saying that.
Well, but
you actually have, so in the same way where you're in prayer, have you ever been in a worship service when you're like worshiping and you can feel the presence of God and you have these epiphanies about your life.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of people have these experiences of getting free from different things that were holding them back. I've had that experience on several occasions where it's like, hey, I'm really struggling with this part of my life, not following God well in this part of my life. And then the Holy Spirit encounters me, and then I have this actual life change. That same thing happens in a different way, and it's actually believable that you're changing. And so I've actually seen a friend of mine in my life where something similar had happened, to where all of a sudden personality shift, change. He was a hyper intelligent guy, like the most intelligent guy I've known in my whole life. And all of a sudden was just
broke.
Yeah.
So it seems like, okay, so what you're describing, it seems like hopefully if you're a Christian, you yourself, or other people in your faith community who encounter the spiritual truth of the gospel and radically change their entire life. You're saying it is the same kind of thing, but you've not encountered the truth of the gospel. You've encountered some other spirit.
And usually it's like, oh, I found out I'm God. Like you hear that a lot.
Right. A whole pantheism kind of thing.
You hear that a lot. A lot of it turns into self-help. Well, I just realized I needed to work out a lot, or I realized. But sometimes it turns out I see like the government is doing this. I need to avenge this person. And like, I'm not saying that these things are all spiritual in the sense of that there's no biochemical part to play in this with some of these people. Obviously, you went through surgery. They put you on all different types of drugs. When that happens, that can really cause inflammation in the brain and cause different things to happen. What I'm saying is that the spiritual and the physical
are not that separate,
or the unseen realm, as the Bible puts it, are intertwined with even your biochemistry.
Right.
And that I think that spiritual beings have a role to play
in what's happening in these kinds of stories.
And these things are happening more and more. And then, on top of it, we're getting way off the rails here, but there's actually a correlation between the locations where these unknown aerial phenomenon happen and drug use.
No kidding.
Psychedelic drug use, yeah. To where these more sightings of these things happen in areas like Denver and downtown Austin and places where these drugs are being used more. Yeah. And so I don't know. I'm just like, if you're a Christian,
well, and I think
you smoke weed, just don't.
I think another it's so funny because you see all these things where people who take these kinds of drugs, people who encounter aliens, people who get into the New Age, people who get into pantheism or meditation, like somehow all these lines converge in a really strange way, where either, and truly I think like either there's obviously something to them because things are happening to all these people, and how you could be just a normal atheist, you know what I mean, and not believe that there's anything to it, whatever, it's just biochemistry, or even how you could be, I know I've heard people call it like therapeutic moralism, just to go to church and be a good boy kind of Christian and not see the deep underworkings of a spiritual enemy attacking people. But the way that all of these things converge into this kind of pantheistic, selfish, secret knowledge, Gnostic, kind of, it's all these things, and they all kind of converge right there at this weird thing that.
And you see people like that go down that path become more and more isolated, away from friends, away from other rational ideas. Like they become more and more by themselves. Well, I don't know why that happens, but that's,
Well, I think you could flip it at that proverb that says, a man that isolates himself, seeks his own desires. And so I think that is what that message is telling you, is like, you're special, you're God, work on
Right.
yourself. Basically like self. And that kind of bubble that you put yourself in of selfishness and self-help and self, blocks out the reality of any other human beings. You know what I mean? Whereas the gospel is the opposite message.
Yeah.
Instead of the whole world revolving around you, it is a filling up and welling outward of love towards the world.
And it really is like, it seems to be this binary thing where like the more complex you make, this string of this and they run together, it's like you seek the Lord and then you realize I need to be with his people. I need to be with people. I need to help other people. I need to think about other people versus myself.
Yeah, love.
Yeah. Or I go down this rabbit hole of how do I satisfy my desires? How do I level up? How do I do these things? And I become more isolated, more self-centered, more depressed.
Yeah. I wish if I knew that we would.
You wanted to jump in here?
Yeah, I mean, never mind. The camera's not set up. I just thought of the verse, "It is not good for man to be alone."
Yeah.
Yeah.
If y'all want to repeat it, I don't know if they can hear.
No, you're on. You're on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's the one thing that was not good about the Garden of Eden, was that man was alone. So there is something about being stuck, feeling alone. You know, it is like, is it like you go crazy because you're alone, or you make yourself alone because you're going crazy? Or maybe that's the whole thing, is that it's both, you know, that it's a vicious cycle. If I had known that we were going to talk about this, I would have pulled up another clip. I watched this interview by Rod Dreyer. He just wrote a book called Reenchantment, something about reenchanting. And he talked about in this interview, he has a whole chapter or a couple chapters in the book about aliens and about the spiritual and the supernatural. And his point was, he was talking to a pastor, and this young guy in his church, he just said, like, you do not understand what is happening to our generation. He said, like, our generation is not seeking answers per se, or intellectualism or anything like that. Our generation is seeking experiences. And so many people, I think he said, I wish I could remember a little bit better. I think he said it was something like 40 or 50% of people in the UK have sought some kind of spiritual occultic experience, or some kind of spiritual experience through the occult. And he was telling this pastor, like, you have to be ready to face this. You have to be ready to face people who have had demonic encounters. You have to be ready to face people who are possessed. You have to be ready to face people who are seeking spiritual experiences. And the church should be able to combat this growing thing, not just by shutting it down, but by redirecting and saying, like, no, the Lord is the true bringer of this kind of wisdom, secret knowledge in a sense, but like Paul does talk about hidden wisdom, you know, in Christ. Yeah. All of those things that you're looking for, that these drugs unlock or level up in you, actually are in the Lord.
It's crazy how like the the spirit of the thing, of the difference between the hidden knowledge and like hidden wisdom, or this this deeper wisdom is. And then, but when you were talking, I was just thinking of like even something as simple as like a Ouija board. Like I remember people bringing those out at like middle school parties and being like, what the heck are y'all doing? Like, but it was like, oh, this is just funny or whatever. Someone's moving the board. Right. But then you hear some of those stories and you're like, I don't know if anybody was moving the board.
Right.
You know, or any person.
I think our culture is moving so fast, and I am genuinely afraid. Like, as a young person who hopes to pastor one day, you know what I mean, in a denomination around other pastors, I am genuinely afraid that
we're not prepared.
Well, Yes. Yeah. Actually, I should just say it as simply as that, where I don't think that older people see it very clearly.
Yeah, because the older people, like boomers, I guess, and we have a lot of boomers in our audience. I love them.
It's like, it's unthinkable.
Yeah, it's unthinkable that
It's
you would
unthinkable.
only, hippies in the 60s, did these kind of things. And
Right.
you end up a loser on the streets.
Well, okay, and even that's the thing, is like, you do these things, you end up a loser on the streets. You know what I mean? Like, oh, it's going to ruin your life because you're a druggie. Like, no, it's going to ruin your life because there's demons.
Yeah.
It's like, and that subtle shade of difference is all the difference. That is the lack of understanding. That is like, it's not just that these things are dumb. It's that there is power behind them, and you have to recognize it. You have to deal with it. And you have to own up to it.
It feels so taboo, even though it's like Paul addresses this specifically, and we quote it in church all the time. Oh, we're not at war against flesh and blood, and then it's like, okay,
I will say that is part of the reason why I am. I think proud is the right word. I am proud to be a charismatic because, in the pendulum swing, if the charismatics stayed on the everything's the devil, cast demons out of everything, the pendulum is about to swing where we're going to need that again. There probably are demons in everything.